record. So first and foremost, thank you all so much for hopping on. And then thank you so much, Cara, for doing this. I met Cara in 2014, and I went through one of her coaching programs thinking that I needed help in my business and I needed help in my life. And she completely turned my life around, and I've recommended all of her books to you guys. I know that you guys know her, but she is a master life coach. She has a blog called The Champagne Diet.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Her podcast is Style Your Mind. And then she is the author of 7 books: The Champagne Diet, Girl Code, Fearless and Fabulous.
You don't have to go through them all. It's a lot.
Okay. Correct. They're all amazing. I just finished her newest book that's going to be coming out tomorrow, which is what we're going to be talking about. It's mind-blowing. Like, it's the best book so far that you have read or that you have written. It's amazing.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you.
Adored it. So I know we were going to kind of do like a Q&A thing. So if you want to kind of get started. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, thank you so much for having me, first of all. And thank you for everybody for tuning in. I just, Jacqueline reached out and was like, let's chat. Like, I would love to kind of, have you come on my team call and talk to you guys. And I'm really grateful to be here and excited to talk to you all. And I think a lot of you guys know me from Girl Code, which was the book that I wrote a couple of years ago, which was all about women coming together and supporting other women in business. And Like She Owns the Place is like a much deeper dive on a lot of the things that I touched on in Girl Code, specifically confidence and specifically learning how to truly love who you are, celebrate who you are, realize that you have something very specific and unique and authentic about you, and then be able to, celebrate that and put that into action so that you can show up for other women. Because I realized that a lot of women really resonated with Girl Code and they loved the book, but they were still lacking the confidence to be able to actually go out and support other people without those feelings of maybe comparison creeping in or self-doubt, because it happens to all of us, especially in the business world, especially in running an online business. So, as you know, Jacqueline, from reading, like, this book just really kind of dives even deeper into like what it takes to really feel good about yourself and be able to show up in not just your business, but your life as well.
Yes. One thing that I loved, and it was kind of written throughout the book, was about your pink hair. And you talked about the feeling, because I mean, even when I think about like changing my nails, I go, oh my gosh, is someone going to think poorly of me? Like, are they going to think all this stuff? But in reality, it's something that I love. And make sure that you guys mute your phones as well. So can you kind of talk about the feelings of the fear of dyeing your hair pink and replacing those negative thoughts with, this is me and I'm going to rock it 100%.
Yeah. So pink hair for me was like a big opportunity for me to explore like what it looks like to really feel confident, because you cannot walk around with pink hair with, an insecure attitude or like with fear or anything like that. Like, it really kind of forces you to be seen, right? Like, just like your nails, like they're bold, they're out there, there's something that you love, they're a conversation starter. People are going to ask you questions. So for me, doing my hair pink was something I always wanted to do. And I debated it for the longest time because, like most of us, I had fears. Would people not take me seriously? Would they not think that I was professional? Would they think that I was, immature or like whatever, like all this crap that we tell ourselves. But what I noticed was that I was having those thoughts about myself. But then when I looked around at all the women that I admired, whether it was in my industry or just in life in general, they were the ones doing those bold things and showing up unapologetically and dyeing their hair pink and wearing what they wanted to wear. So I was like, where's the disconnect coming from? Like, why do I love all these women and I have screenshots of them on my phone and their quotes and their interviews and I watch them, but why can't I show up and do that for myself in my own life? So it took a lot of work to realize that, I did have fear of being seen, even though I do put myself out there constantly. It's something that I, have always dealt with my whole life. I think we've all dealt with insecurities, but actually getting myself to, work up the nerve and the courage to go do it. And then seeing the impact that it's had on myself and my life and the women around me it's just been like so empowering, and it's been such a game changer for me. And it's not that pink hair gives me confidence, but I think it's an action that I took to build my confidence. And I think, you know, being confident is something that looks different for all of us. Like, not everybody wants wild nails and everybody wants wild hair. Like, it looks different. So maybe being confident is just, you know, putting it out there and starting a business, or, you know, leaving a marriage that isn't serving you anymore, whatever. But for me, pink hair was like, I call it the gateway drug. Because once I did that, it was like, you know, totally off the rails. Like, now I feel like I could do anything, because again, it really like puts you out there.
I love it. And you talked a lot about finding the book advanced style, and hearing about other women's stories. And I loved it where you talked about that they all had lives of ups and downs. But they all chose to focus on gratitude and happiness instead of the negative aspect. And I think that a lot of times, especially being entrepreneurs and being in direct sales, where you're constantly, you know, having to pump out content and trying to support other women, I think we tend to get in our own heads and focus on the negative aspects of our life and all that kind of stuff. So if there was someone on here that constantly looked at the negative aspects of their life, that they just kind of wallow in that, how would you tell them to shift out of that thought process?
Well, like you mentioned, gratitude, you know, is something that I talk so much about. And just for those listening who don't know, Advanced Style is a book that is, it's a book about style, but for older women. So it's a book that focuses on women who are like, I think they're like 60 and older. But it's women who are really aging gracefully. And they, you know, the book really focuses on the way that they look and the crazy outfits that they wear and how inspiring that is. But at the core message, these women are really so full of life and so full of zest and so happy. And they've been through a lot of stuff. I mean, when you reach a certain age, like, you've got a lot of life behind you. So what really struck me about that book was not so much the outfits, which is what I was drawn to, but it was the attitude of the women in the book who were, you know, facing things that, you know, a lot of us haven't faced yet. And I started thinking about my own life and how I have been able to shift out of hard times and challenges, because just like everybody, I face all of that stuff. And to me, like, just the underlying theme has always been gratitude. That has always been what I've been able to shift into, to realize that life is beautiful and tomorrow is not promised. And we all have such an incredible opportunity in front of us every single day. Now more than ever, I think, to get out there and to do the things that make us happy and light us up. Like, we're living in such an incredible, you know, age where we can show up online and do what we love to do and put ourselves out there and start a business, and, you know, everything's at our fingertips. So when you realize that, and you realize that, you know, we are so fortunate, I think that's how I've always been able to kind of get out of that place of, you know, loathing or, you know, self-loathing or self-pity. I always say they don't serve champagne at pity parties. That's a quote from Girl Code, and it's the truth. Like, if we sit around focusing on that, like, what would it look like if we just shifted the focus? What would our lives look like if we said, you know what, today, just for one day, instead of feeling bad for myself, I'm going to put that energy into building something new for myself. And, you know, I take it in baby steps. Whenever I found myself in that kind of a situation, I'm like, all right, for the next hour, just focus on what you do have. Don't focus on what's missing. And then do it for the next hour and the next, and before you know it, it becomes a habit.
Yes. One thing that I took away, and talking to you in 2014 was something that I had worked on back then, but you can still catch yourself in that cycle of gossip. And so I noticed where I had gotten really bad again and starting to read Like She Owns a Place. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. I have to focus on the positive aspect and rearrange that conversation. So it was like a good punch in the gut, like, get your shit back together.
Yeah, I mean, like, the people that we spend our time with, I talk about this a lot in the book. I have a term that I use called audacious auditing. And really what that is the process of looking at the habits, thoughts, and people in your life and asking yourself, are these things serving me? And a lot of us are surrounded by people whose default setting tends to be negativity and gossip and, you know, drama. And we really have to, you know, ask ourselves, like, are these people that I'm spending my time with bringing me up and giving me energy, or are they bringing me down and draining me? And a lot of times it's not easy to realize that maybe it's a family member, if it's a good friend, or someone who, you know, kind of pulls you into that world. But I have really made it a habit to change the conversations that go that direction. You know, if I'm in a text message with someone who all of a sudden starts, you know, talking negatively about somebody else, I either, you know, I try to respond and say that I'd rather not discuss this, or I just stop answering them. You know, this comes up a lot, I think, especially in business. You know, I've seen it happen so many times in my industry, and it's a small industry and people talk, and, you know, I just never want to be that girl. And I find that my life is so much better and so much more peaceful when I don't have to worry about what someone might have think I said about them, or listen to what someone said about me. It's just, there's just no time for it. And again, like, the big theme here is energy, and what we focus on expands. And when we focus on negative conversations about other people, we get more of that. And that's what starts to become our reality. So I think it's just about realizing, like, okay, I could sit here and be involved in this drama, or I could sit here and, you know, build a business and make a lot of money and change a lot of lives. Like, there's always an option. So I always know what team I want to be on. I hope that I can, like, inspire women to really kind of do the same thing.
For sure. For sure. So you talked a lot about vulnerability and transparency instead of shooting for perfection. And again, I think in this kind of business, and probably in every direct selling, you always want to look perfect. Like, you look around and you go, oh my gosh, they have a better following. I need to post like them. You know, they're doing this, this, and this. They're making all this money, so I need to act like that. And so a lot of time we completely stop being vulnerable and sharing our own true selves and trying to be perfect. And in turn, it makes us stop, or it makes us just not authentic to ourselves. And so then it's like we're just constantly on that hamster wheel. So how do you find the courage to be transparent and to be vulnerable, like just one small step at a time kind of thing?
You know, probably not the answer everybody wants to hear, but you just got to do it. You just have to start, and you can start small. You know, I think when I see people who come to me, like either in my coaching practice or just girls in Slay Baby or any of my Facebook groups or on Instagram, and they, you know, they feel trapped in that cycle and they feel like they can't be themselves, I always notice, like, they are expending so much energy trying to be like someone else, or trying to, you know, follow some kind of a blueprint, and it's exhausting. And if you could just realize that being yourself and kind of stripping away, like, the mask and not putting up that facade is so much easier and so much more enjoyable and takes out so much less energy from you. So, you know, if it's something that feels really overwhelming, like, you don't have to do everything at one time. You don't have to tell your entire story in one long Facebook post and then just wait for people to comment. Like, that's probably terrifying to most people. But if you can just start to share in small ways. I mean, for me, I started with my blog, and I would start to share stories and, you know, just talk about what was going on in my life. And this was 10 years ago when I started blogging, and I was in, you know, I was coming out of a relationship and sort of, you know, changing the way that I felt about myself and my body. And I was sharing those things, and it was in a blog post. So I wasn't like a Facebook Live, or we didn't even have that stuff back then. You know, there was no like video or anything. It was like Twitter and Facebook. But just kind of putting it out there and seeing what happened. And what was happening was people were resonating with it so much. Like, people were loving the fact that I was willing to share myself, and I was feeding off of that energy. So think about, like, one small way that you can put yourself out there that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but maybe not so uncomfortable that you want to just run and hide, like, after you're done. So whether it's maybe sharing part of your journey on, you know, your Instagram in a caption or somewhere, or on a Facebook post, or on a podcast, or whatever feels good to you. But, you know, baby steps are brilliant. That's one of my favorite mantras. Taking those small steps, those small little, you know, inspired actions make a big difference. And again, like anything, the more you do it, the more it becomes second nature to you. And I think when you see how good it feels to just be you, it kind of becomes a no-brainer.
Yes. And shutting off, like, that was one thing that we talked about back then was, and you talked about it in your book as well, it is not really looking around, like keeping focused on what you're supposed to be doing. You had said that when you started your podcast, you did not research any other podcast, like you just started it. And
yeah,
you said that if you would have looked at other people's podcasts, you would have stalled, or, you know, not done it at all. And so I think that's another thing is, you know, looking around and constantly comparing. and all that kind of stuff, it makes you freeze completely.
Totally.
Path.
Totally. And so this is interesting fact. Some of you guys may know this, some of you may not know this, but I actually have been doing the Beachbody To Be Mindset program. And I like have been loving the program. And the girl who introduced me to it, Andrea Crowder, was like, you should just, start use an affiliate link and like start promoting it and sharing it. So like my first thought was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know anything about direct sales. Like, how am I going to do this? And my gut reaction was like, well, go look at the industry and see how other people are talking about it. And then I was like, no, that doesn't work. You have to walk your walk, like do what feels right to you. And I started talking very authentically about the program and sharing it in my blog and on my podcast and doing what I do in the way that I know how to do it. And that's, like you said, with blinders on, just focusing. I always say you will do your best work when you start looking within and you stop looking outside of yourself. So I've had a very, similar experience to you guys now, like having been kind of in the direct sales world, even though I'm not building a team, but there's so much going on around you at any given moment. Even me with life coaches and authors, I don't read self-help books. I don't read any personal development books because I don't want to take in that information and then maybe sound like somebody else accidentally without even meaning to. So I think like as much as, it's great to have a community and a tribe, lean on each other for support, but be very careful about what you're consuming and how much of it you're consuming. Like if you have to limit your time on social media, limit your time, scale back a little bit. Maybe don't mindlessly scroll Instagram or Facebook because it can get really poisonous if you're constantly looking around at other people and we don't even realize it, but we do start to compare. So know that you have a unique gift. Try to spend as much time as you can alone, especially when you're in content creation mode. Like if you want to do a Facebook post that day, like try to wake up in the morning and like have your coffee and do your thing and like write it up somewhere, draft it before you go on Facebook and open up your Facebook, because you're going to see probably 20 things that are going to talk you out of doing it before you even, take that action step and go put it up there.
Yes. I have to like go in a very quiet spot in my room. And if anyone starts talking, I'm like, no, stop. I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, it's true. You have to give yourself that time and space.
Yes. And I love all of that. So lastly, and then we can because I literally, guys, I hope that you all buy her book tomorrow, because I wrote like 5 or 6 pages.
I love it.
For like an hour and a half.
That makes me so happy because you have no idea. Like even me, I talk about imposter syndrome and fear of failure and all these things in the book. And even me, someone who wrote a book about confidence, the voices were still in my head. What if this isn't as good as Girl Code? What if people don't get it? What if it doesn't make sense to people? So like, I just want to put that out there. Like we all deal with this no matter where we are in our journey or in our business. But I think the tools that hopefully that I wrote about are tools I use in my own life and with all my clients, like they just help us move through it a little bit quicker. It's just, we're able to push through and realize, okay, I see what this is. This is a fear. This is an irrational story I'm telling myself. I know exactly what I need to do to shift and pivot and move out of this feeling.
Yes. And I loved that a lot. I've read all of Brene Brown's books as well. And so she really kind of talked about the story in your head and being able to relay that to other people going, okay, the story in my head is, that you hate my guts right now. And because I didn't make tacos for dinner, when in reality, it's just that you're probably tired. And so I love like being able to recognize what's going on and then being able to like let it go and replace it with, what reality really is. So towards the end of the book, you talked about feelings of disconnect from work. I think anywhere, like if you worked a regular job or entrepreneurs or authors, where you get to a point to where you wonder if like, is that vibe still there? Is that joy still there? And sometimes you will feel disconnected from work. And so you talked a lot about, instead of vision boards, creating happy boards. And I loved that 100%. My mom is like a huge artsy, crafty person. So she just finished making like a 5-layer vision board. So now I'm going to go back and go, okay, you have to make like a cork board now. So can you kind of talk about the difference between, the vision board and the happy board? And if you feel like you are disconnected from your work, how do you get back into a place of happiness?
So that's a great question. So I found myself at a point a couple of years ago where, I was big into vision boards. Like I talk about them, I write about them, and I do think it's very important to visualize what you want and focus on goals. But what was happening for me personally is that every year in January, in the new year, I would make a vision board and I would put all these goals on there that I thought I should be striving for that year. I would go get it professionally framed. I would hang it up in my apartment. And then one year I noticed, like it may have been June, because it was about the halfway point in the year. I was rearranging things and I was going to move it to a different side of the apartment. And I looked at it and I saw these things on there that I was like, who made this? Because this does not feel like me anymore. Like I had pictures of like Khloe Kardashian, because I like wanted her to like read my book and like repost me on Instagram or something like silly like that. Like I had all these random things. I had like a talk show set. I don't really felt like I wanted a talk show anymore. I don't even know where that came from. And I started to think about the goals that we reach for, as very success obsessed women. And I asked myself, like, did you put those things on there because you thought you should? Or maybe did somebody get in your ear and maybe tell you that you should be striving for this, or this would be a good thing for you? And I think it gets confusing sometimes, because a lot of people think they know what's best for us and they'll give us advice, and it's usually very, very well-meaning advice. But are we really spending enough time with ourselves, asking ourselves, like, does this make sense for me? Do I really want this? Do I really need a beach house? Do I really need to build a multi-million-dollar business? Do I really need a team of 80 people under me? Like, it's different for everybody. So I looked at that thing and I was like, this just doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And I went out and I bought a cork board, like one of those from Staples, like a bulletin board. And I decided to completely kind of reframe what a vision board was for me. And I started calling it a happiness board, or I call it a dream board sometimes. And it's basically a collection of things that bring me joy and make me feel good. And it could be anything. It could be business related. Like I have cutouts from like magazine features that I was really excited to be in. I have cards from friends. I have little like notes from flowers that friends have sent me, like birthday pictures, like anything that just makes me happy. So now when I look at that board, which is actually over there behind me, when I look at that board, it's like, it puts me in a high vibration. It puts me in a good place. It makes me feel happy. It feels dreamy. It's pretty to look at. It's pictures of Marilyn Monroe on there. There's like a champagne label on there. Like it's just stuff that makes me feel amazing and in a high energy space. And rather than looking at all these goals that I don't have yet, right? Because a vision board is like these things you're striving to attain and striving to achieve, which can then create a sense of like feeling of lack, like I don't have it yet, or, I'm not there yet. And our default settings sometimes can be very negative. Like, why hasn't this happened for me? Instead of that, it works better. And now, like, this is going to sound crazy, but I don't really set a whole lot of goals for myself anymore. What I do is get myself in that high vibe, put myself in that space of bliss and joy and happiness, and then make things from there. So a lot of people will say like, well, writing, for example, as a writer, like, how do you write? Do you sit down? Do you say, I'm going to write for 6 hours a day? I don't do that. Like, I just go to a place that makes me feel amazing. Like, I live in New York and I'm very fortunate to live here. So I can take myself to like the plaza, and go sit down with my laptop and like work for an hour. And like, sometimes just doing something like that will completely shift me and make me feel like so amazing.
I love it. I was working with Beachbody Corporate, and she was saying the same thing, where she's like, Jacqueline, just be yourself. Like, invite how you want to invite, work how you want to work. I'm not going to put any more words in your mouth because it has to come from you. And I think it's the same thing, that when you kind of get in that high vibe, that's when amazing things happen, 100%. So
totally. And you learn to trust yourself. I think that's like the biggest thing too, with like being authentic and being happy, is like about trusting what's best for you. A lot of us don't know what's best for us yet because we haven't taken that time to really think about it. Like, your business doesn't have to look like anyone else's business. My books don't have to look like anyone else's books. We're trained to kind of all strive for the same things. And I think if we took a step back and thought about what really is important to us, we'd have a very different experience.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we have like a couple of minutes. If anyone has any questions, or like, oh my gosh, Cara, I love you so much, then please feel free to unmute yourself if you would like, and spout away.
I'm reading the comments from Jen, focusing on joy goals. Totally. That's exactly like what it is. Things that are going to bring you joy. I love that.
Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, I see somebody. Oh, are people muted?
Oh, Jen said she's typing.
Okay. Drinking my water first in my wine glass.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Jen, you can unmute yourself here.
What?
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the kids are like insane. So that's what I was saying. They're very unpredictable at the moment. But I really loved the concept that you started off with the whole, you look up to women with pink hair, the very bold women. And I think that's something that we can all, relate to, because I know no matter where I go in this business or as a person, the confidence that I get, one of those things, I always have someone like I look up to and I admire. And then it's like almost intimidating because you're like, oh, but we put them on this pedestal that, we can't, we're not as good. And then we just beat ourselves down. I know that's what I do anyway. So I really love that concept and that you address that with this book. So I just ordered it on Amazon. So
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think again, and I did talk a lot about this in Girl Code, but leveling the playing field, realizing that we're all the same. We're all just women who want better for ourselves. Most of us, right? At least everybody on this call, we're all trying to grow and improve and learn. And, everybody's scared. Everybody gets nervous. I'm sure that everybody who's dyed their hair a crazy color has panicked a little bit at first or done something bold or showed up in a really new and bold way. And just, I think if we could be more honest about those things, and that's what I really try to do in this book. I'm extremely vulnerable. It was very scary to write some of those things in that book about how I felt and how I continue to feel sometimes, but I know that I'm doing that for a bigger purpose. I'm doing that to share and to help other women feel safe and help them feel comforted and help them feel like they're, not alone. And if we could all do that, especially for you guys who lead teams, showing the girls under you, look, sometimes it's scary for me to post, a photo or something, a transformation picture. Sometimes it's scary for me to invite someone to my business, but I still do it anyway. And I think that's the main theme, feel the fear, recognize the anxiety, move through it anyway, be real, be honest, and then show people how you came out on the other side. For every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. And if we could just wait until we reach that breakthrough and realize what we've learned from it and then share that with other women, I think we would just be unstoppable, honestly.
I love it.
So
I see the comments. Thank you guys.
So I there's two sides. I'm either a jump first, think later, or think too much and never jump. So how do you get, because I have all of these ideas, and Jen, she'll tell you I have a million ideas, and I can tell everybody else how to do these ideas, but I won't do them because it's I don't know, I can't do what I say, but I know that it's a work thing. So how should I handle what should I do? Should I just, I don't know. I guess my question is how do I get to combine the two so that it's not one and not the other? Because I can go to someone and see all of these ideas, oh yeah, we can do this, and I won't act on it. Or I'll just act on something and so what's your plan? And I'm I have no idea. It just seemed like I should have moved. So I don't know what
feels best to you, really in your gut, what feels best?
The funny thing is they both do at the same time. It's the same type of adrenaline, but it's just it's almost like the follow through. I can get to point A, have no idea how to get to point Z, or I can tell you how to get to A to Z, but I'm too scared to do it myself.
Mm-hmm. I would just explore that. I would spend some time really thinking about that. What is really holding you back? Why are you able to give that to somebody else and not yourself? Because there's probably something deeper there that's going on. I think we hold ourselves back so much. A lot of us sabotage ourselves. I wrote about that a lot in the book, self-sabotage. Why do we do what we do? It's a big question, and I think it's only something you're going to be able to answer for yourself. It's not advice I could really give you, because there's always just something within us, there's some deep rooted stuff going on there, why we don't allow ourselves to really truly step into our power. So I would maybe journal about it, do some free writing, spend some time alone, not poll. I always, when we ask people things, like we could ask 10 questions, one question to 10 different people and get 10 different answers, so in your heart, deep down, what it is that's holding you back. And I would also think about, like, who would you be if you showed up the way that you really want to show up? Who would you be as that woman? How would your life change if you could do that, what you really want to do?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see a question on the sidebar from Allison. How do you suggest avoiding false goals centered around promoting within? I don't know if I understand, Allison. What do you mean? Can you talk?
You want me to? Where is Allison? Here. You're unmuted.
Okay, sorry if there's kid background.
That's okay.
Basically, I feel like network marketing type businesses kind of promote, certain goals, steps, this is what you want to get to next. But I feel like that kind of goes with your vision board idea that is that really where you want to go type thing. Mm-hmm. So I guess trying to silence that side of the business and focusing more on finding the goals that make you really want to, make you really feel alive but still advancing.
I think the beauty of the business that you guys are in is that you could make it your own. I mean, you could do it your way. Like, yeah, there are certain levels to get to, and there may be pressure from certain people to do things in a certain order. But like the way that I'm running my Beachbody business now, which is something I never even thought I would do, I'm just sharing my link and people are signing up under me. I'm not building a team. I'm just like, I knew that I wanted to share a program because I was passionate about the way it had transformed my life and my body and my mindset. And I was just focused on sharing that with other people. And I was like, I'm just going to make this my own and do it my way and not put so much pressure around it. So I think you just got to do what makes you happy. And, stop looking around at the people around you. Stop feeling like it has to be done a specific way, because I don't really think it does. I mean, there's no rules around it, really. It's like that's the kind of progression. But as long as you are focusing on the end goal, which is helping people and serving people and, growing a business that makes you feel good, that's all that should matter.
Well, and I loved that. I was trying to look through my notes. It seemed like, or maybe this is coming from somewhere else, that was kind of in line with your happiness. I cannot think of it. With your happiness, and then kind of setting those joy goals, because that's what is ultimately going to move you. It's not going to be, I think when you were talking about when women want to make $1 million businesses, mm-hmm. and why that, like, you would want to go, okay, why is that such a big deal? Because ultimately there's something below is what's really driving them. It's not, a certain rank or whatever. I think that's what I was.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like we put all this value in these external goals and these things outside of us. And we think they're going to make us happy. We think if we become, a 15-star diamond, life is going to be amazing. Or we think if we make $1 million in our business, we're going to somehow feel more confident in ourselves. But at the end of the day, all of those things are just measures of success. But success is really the way you feel inside. So if you feel good waking up every single day, knowing that you get to do what you love to do, and your measure and your barometer for success is simply happiness, I think that would really change the way that you feel, of all of us on this call, about our businesses. If you could just do what makes you happy and let go of what you should be, where you should be, how you should act, what you should look like, and just redefine success for yourself and realize that it's completely dependent upon you. I have a whole chapter in here called Success is a State of Being. I think that's the chapter that you're talking about.
Yes.
And I really, really dive into it. And like, for me, that was a big thing. Just understanding that, getting to do what I do every single day, getting to share what I do. I've always kind of been like the outsider in my industry. Like, I'm not like typical life coaches. I don't run in that circle. I don't do the things they do. I don't like show up on the same podcast they show up on, but that's how I've like that's what makes me happy. I don't want to follow what everyone else is doing. I just want to wake up every day and feel creative and inspired. And to me, that's how I measure my success.
Love it. Okay, I think we have officially ran over. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. Thank you a ton, Cara, and happy launch day tomorrow.
Thank you.
deserve it every single bit.
Thank you so much.
Stop recording.